8:05 to 9 p.m. every Thursday on Village Connection Radio. Arriba!
What you're paid for this? The way it's supposed to be. It was $5,000.
Magnificent Mike? Really? Wow, you're gonna have to work a lot harder than that to impress the goddess of WWE, Alexa Bliss. Sorry, Mike.
All right, man. Welcome back to another special Saturday edition of Monty and the Pharaoh. Usually seen on Village Connection Radio on Thursdays, 8:05 to 9 p.m. I'm Mike Monty. At the board is producer extraordinaire Stephen Miller. To my right is the Pharaoh and our special guest, our honor, the living legend, Mr. Larry Zbyszko. Larry!
Thank you. Thank you. Why are we all wearing sunglasses?
Oh, why not?
Okay.
Part of the shtick, right?
Yeah. All right. I got the lights in me. So.
You actually look better than we do with sunglasses.
He's now part of the faction.
Thank you.
Whatever
Thank
the
you.
faction is.
You just came from the big event in Queens, right?
Yeah.
How was it?
It was big. A lot.
Well, there you go.
All right.
I mean, there was a lot of people.
Sardine City? Or?
Yeah, and they had one floor and then another floor.
All right.
They're very big, and they had a lot of guys there.
Okay.
Yeah,
Anybody you ran into?
You know
that
what? I
you
mean,
like?
most of the guys I see once in a while. You know,
Okay.
Nash and Hall and some others.
They were there?
But one guy I saw I haven't seen in over 20 years, probably Ken Patera.
Yeah.
Oh,
Ken,
wow.
Kenny was there.
Nice.
How does
He was
Kenny
great.
look?
He looks fine for being Ken Patera.
Yeah, all right.
I love Ken Patera.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he
we're
was a
big fans of Ken
classic.
Patera.
We had some fun times in the old
Is
days.
he in the Hall of Fame?
He is not in the
Can
Hall
we
of
start making trouble
Right,
already?
he is
Well,
not
how
in
is
the
he
Hall
not
of
in the
Fame,
Hall of Fame?
I don't know.
He
I
should
know
be in the
nothing.
Hall of Fame.
I
Do
see
something
nothing.
about that, Larry. Thank you.
I'll make a call.
He should be. He was great.
All right, Larry, we're going to kick this bad boy off, all right? So here we go. Jimmy.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and children of all ages, let me introduce you to born Lawrence Whistler, December 5th, 1951, from Chicago, Illinois. Well, that's what they say. You don't have to confirm this, okay?
Is that an untruth?
It could be. Better known by the ring name Larry Zbyszko, 5 feet 11, 233 listed, ladies and gentlemen, a former AWA heavyweight champion, 2 times former AWA America's heavyweight champion, AWA Superstars of Wrestling World Heavyweight Championship, AWA Six-Man Tag Team Championship. Wow, there's a lot of honors here. Georgia Championship Wrestling, NWA National Heavyweight Champion 2 times.
Wow.
NWA Western State Heritage Championship. Was that with Wyndham?
Yeah, Barry Windham.
Yeah. WCW World Tag Team Championship with Arn
Arn, yeah,
Anderson,
he was
the
good.
Enforcers. World Television Champion in WCW. World Tag Team Championship with Arn Anderson. World Wrestling Federation, and then this is where it starts for me. Tag Team Championship with Tony Gurria.
Yeah.
And, of course, Hall of Fame WWE Class of 2015. Man, oh, man. That is some resume.
Glad the world didn't end in 2012. I wouldn't have made it.
Oh, my God, imagine.
This is true.
Also, PWI, Most Hated Wrestler.
Oh, yes.
1980.
Most
Yes.
hated.
And Feud of the Year with Bruno Sammartino. 1980 PWI.
Absolutely.
What didn't he do in 1980?
Really, Larry, what haven't you done in the world of professional wrestling?
You know what? I guess I kind of had a lucky career and did a lot of it, because not only did I get the wrestling in, but when guys my age getting over 40, and getting the knee surgeries and the promoters looking at younger guys and new guys, I fell into a beautiful position by accident, not wanting to, doing the broadcasting.
Yeah.
So then throughout the whole 90s, I did 10 years of broadcasting, which gave me a connection to a whole new couple generations of younger fans, and pulled off a couple classics with Regal and, of course, the New World Order against Hall and Bischoff, saving Nitro, and it was good. So I kind of lucked out and didn't plan on becoming a broadcaster. I'll tell you that story. But it's been a great career.
certainly has. Real quick, you've always been good on the mic. Since you're talking about the broadcast, so we'll jump way ahead and then we'll come back.
Ah, good.
All right. So, are you who offers you the position as a broadcaster, and do you feel you're capable of handling the mic? Right? Because in WCW, you're following the likes of Gordon Soley, for example.
Oh yeah.
Right? So that's got to
I
be
mean, JR and Shivani were great, both of them. I mean, they were great. And,
Do you feel Shivani's underrated?
oh, probably. I mean, if anybody doesn't think Tony's great, they're
I thought
nuts. Tony was great.
Tony could relay excitement in his voice. He was really
yeah,
good.
and he had a sound. He was great to work with. Great guy. Yeah, they were both great. JR, Tony, Gordon. I started broadcasting. I worked with Gordon a little bit. He was funny. It was a good time.
Did you have to work on your style, or did you pretty much?
You know what? I was blessed, I guess, with the gift of gab. And I learned the secret of psychology from the old timers of how to talk, in character. But it came easy to me. And I remember doing the broadcasting, I had a little tape recorder with me. And if I went, or even interviews during my career, I'd be going down the road listening to music and I'd hear some song, The Stairway to Heaven. Well, I'd make a little note in my mind on my recorder. Hey, Stairway to Heaven, you went to climb the Stairway to Heaven, Bach, Winkle, I'm going to be on,
Right.
And I'd make a note and I'd come up and think about it. And then by the time the interviews came, I had this all big interview in my head already about getting to Larryland, trying to climb that Stairway to Heaven, and take little things here and there.
Sure.
Well, who offers you the position of broadcaster?
Well, I was Indian Forces, me and Arn, whatever year that was. And I wasn't big on tag teaming. Singles, I liked singles better. Bigger star, more money. I liked working myself,
Yeah.
Okay.
But Arn and me wound up tag teaming. And again, I was about 40, so I was starting to... And Arn was great. I mean, me and Arn clicked. And even in those days when people were starting to chant boring and clotheslines were becoming a dime a dozen, me and Arn would walk out and the crowd would go, whoa! I mean, you could feel the heat. I mean, So
you complimented each other.
Arn was great, and they complimented each other. Arn was great to do tags, especially being around 40. So I enjoyed that, but then it became the Dangerous Alliance. And the politics changed. Bill Watts came in, started messing everything up.
He's your favorite.
No,
You love Bill Watts.
No, he's a goof.
I know you
he admits it, and he's proud of himself. He's
Right.
proud to be an asshole.
Right. There you
So
go.
we had some
I've heard this. Yeah.
we had some classic run-ins, but it worked out okay. But in those times, a Dangerous Alliance, I didn't want to be in a group, and Bill Watts wanted the new guys to come in like Eric Watts and beat everybody up.
Oh boy.
So I lucked out and had a little cartilage tear in my knee. So I went, time out. And the company was great. TBS, they paid for it. So I got a little knee surgery and knee cleaning. I never had a serious injury.
Okay.
I had some knee stuff, but it was just little cartilage tears. I never blew anything.
Okay.
So while I was at home doing a little rehab with the knee, I get a call one day, and I can't remember the guy's name, if it was Craig Leathers or not, one of the executive producers in the production department, and asked me if I could come down and do a voiceover on some pre-taped shows because they just fired Jesse Ventura. And Jesse was gone.
And those are big shoes to fill, right?
Yeah,
Jesse
yeah.
was incredible.
It was a big name, Jesse, with that stuff. So I went, well, okay, I'll come down. They were paying me to sit home in rehab, so I felt guilty. Mm-hmm. And this was the time when they were starting to give away money like candy. So I went down, and I voiced over a few shows that they had pre-taped, not thinking about anything. And the producer runs in, could have been Craig, if I think. He said, Larry, you're the greatest color man I've ever heard. We want to give you a job. We want you to do the color. I said, what? And they probably already knew more shows were coming that I didn't even know about yet. And at first, you'd think, whoa. At first I went, color man? What? I'm supposed to be the living legend like Bruno. What the hell? I wanted to be Shivani?
Right.
So at first it kind of hit me wrong. Like, they should, think of me as a big wrestling star, which was fading away. But now they want me to do the broadcasting. So at first it was like, I don't believe it.
Right.
Kind of like an insult.
You were a little taken aback by it. Like,
Yeah.
"Excuse me, what do you mean?"
But then I realized, but then I started doing it. And it came easy to me.
Yeah.
And I approached it from the viewpoint of a fan with the emotion, because I was into it, but with the knowledge of an expert who's been in there. And I also realized the broadcasting is really an underrated kind of position.
Oh yeah.
Because they're always talking about the guys in the ring, the stars.
Yep.
And I was telling some of even the newer broadcasters starting off, giving them some points, but the broadcaster's job is really a very important job because they bring everything to life, all the hard work, the production, the injuries, the action. If the announcers aren't with it, they can
be just as critical as the match magic itself.
Yeah, so the announcing is really an important job, and I was lucky it came easy to me.
Right.
And I had to drop really the Larry Zbyszko persona of being the complete a-hole. Otherwise, because
You know what, though? You didn't lose your edge.
Well, no, I managed to do
lose your
that.
edge, though.
Yeah.
You might have taken something off the bad guy fastball, perhaps, but you did not lose your edge.
Yeah.
And I think what's forgotten about, or not given enough credit, I won't say forgotten, but not given enough credit, is that when the NWO was first starting and didn't really have that definitive face of criticism against them, you were that face.
Yeah.
You were the guy that was supplying the heat through your commentary towards the NWO. I thought that was
the
great
New World
stuff.
Order.
Absolutely.
Odor.
There you go. You were murdering them week after week. You were giving them as much heat as they were generating. You were helping.
So
You were
Larry,
adding.
when you were announcing, did you have the truck chirping in your ear, or it was total
No.
shoot?
You know what? They would never say anything to me.
Imagine that.
And I would find out later. And then they told me, they said, Larry, you're better under pressure. And they would do things to me like, not on purpose, but they wouldn't tell me anything on purpose. And Shivani would say something like, we have a new guy in, and Norman Smiley. And Tony would go, he's got him by the ropes, Larry, and he's doing his thing. What do you call that? And he'd leave me hanging.
The big wiggle.
And I went, just out of the blue, I look, I'm going, the big wiggle? The big wiggle!
Oh, my God.
So
that was you?
Yeah, that was me.
That's hilarious.
It just,
he took that and ran with it.
yeah, and
Cut you a check afterwards?
it became his
Oh,
thing.
my God. It certainly did.
And but that was, Tony just said that and left me hanging on the live TV, but that popped in there.
Right.
So I took it as a compliment. Under pressure, I was good. And then after I realized, what an important job this really was.
Right.
And then being 45, and then 48, and then 50, I realized, gee, I'm getting more publicity than anybody, and I'm not getting hurt.
Great with it.
They're giving me more money than when I wrestled.
It's a second career, right? I mean,
Yeah, and
in some ways,
yeah,
it's great.
it was.
It worked.
So it worked out great. I can't complain. And then the whole career winding up with the ending the way it did with the Hall of Fame. It was the perfect ending to a great dream.
Well, with every ending, there's a beginning. So let's go to the beginning a little
Nice.
bit. What makes you want to become a professional wrestler? How do you decide, look, this is what
How do
want
I
to
say? It was in me. I moved from Chicago to Pittsburgh. I was like 13.
Are you a Steelers fan?
No, I never watch. I don't watch.
Interesting.
I don't watch sports.
Interesting. You went to Penn State, though, right?
Yeah,
Interesting.
I didn't care.
Not big on
I just
sports,
didn't want to
though.
get drafted. I wanted to be a wrestler.
Okay.
But I wasn't going to Vietnam, so I went to Penn State.
Yeah, good.
They offered me a scholarship to go.
Okay.
But I hated college anyway.
Fair
I wanted to be a wrestler. When I was a kid, first moved to Pittsburgh, first time I saw wrestling. Chili Billy Cardilli and the wrestlers, and the big hero was Bruno. And I went, my God, and he became my hero. And it wasn't just Bruno, it was the fact that good triumphed over evil.
Right.
It was the good guy beating the snot out of the bad guy.
Right.
Which, when I was a kid, even the TV shows, the good guys always outdid the bad guys. The good guys were cool, not the bad guys.
Right.
It got reversed later.
It sure did.
But, so that intrigued me, justice and beat up the bad guys and be a hero like Bruno.
Sure.
And so he became my hero. And when I was 16 and started driving, I found out where he lived. He lived 4 or 5 miles down the road from me.
Okay.
And I would drive that way. I'd make a turn a little before the normal turn to go by his house.
Okay.
And one time I drove by his house. I saw him in the backyard one summer day. And it was hard to see because he had these big-ass hedges
Okay, that makes
around
sense.
his property. With
A little privacy for Bruno. Okay.
yeah, but I could barely see him. He was standing
Not
by
enough.
Yeah, not enough. He didn't get away.
Not for Larry the Stalker.
Yeah, I'm stalking this guy.
Oh my God. Okay, so and in the days before GPS, he found his house. I'm
Yeah,
impressed.
well, my mother worked did some volunteer work at a school where his kid went to school, and she
Okay,
gave me the
there you
ad.
go. There you go. There's the connections.
Yeah, so mom helped.
All right, so you
So-
see Bruno.
I see him. I couldn't help it. I stopped the car and I start crawling through these hedges.
I love it. This is great. Okay.
That's
Crawl through the hedges was full of cuts and stickers.
That's great.
Bugs.
16-year-old little kid with pimples. I'm coming through this guy's yard, and Bruno looks at me, and I don't know how he kept a straight face. And in his prime, he was awesome looking. I mean, like a gorilla that shaved.
Sure.
I mean,
Sure.
and I don't believe I was walking up to this guy through his yard, and he was standing there. Long story short, I introduced myself, was very polite, and he was very, like, a nice guy.
It's amazing.
I mean, very nice guy. You know, he didn't, you know, but that's just the kind of guy Bruno was. And that happened a couple of times. Once in a while, I'd see him, I'd stop by, and it got to be, and we talked. Then he found out about my wrestling amateur career, and that impressed him. And then I started working out with him in his basement with the weights and doing his workouts.
How'd that feel the first time he said to you, why don't you come over? Well,
I
must have been like,
yeah, well, I had a mentor.
yeah.
And the silly thing was, starting with Bruno as my mentor in the business, and me being 21 and just young and dumb, I had no idea of the power of the politics that I could have, or that he had, and how it worked. But, you know, being Bruno's protege made me really kind of an instant somebody in the business that was very tough. And I didn't even realize at that time that the political thing where all the guys in those days that didn't want you in the business, you know, the old timers, so they could have a job, you know, Strongbow and Skolin and Monsoon.
Did you find resistance from Strongbow?
No, they all loved
I've heard
me.
other stories
Well,
about Chief Jay.
they all love you
That's the
because
thing.
you and Bruno.
They
got
all
along,
loved
right?
me.
You had
They
the
all
Bruno
went out of
thing,
their
right.
way to teach me
Okay.
psychology, and they taught me how to work by the best guys that wouldn't tell anybody else.
Right.
Well, so Larry,
But
not to
because
make
I
this,
was Bruno's pro, I didn't realize everybody's being so nice.
right.
not to make this about Strongbow. We had Lanny Poffo in about 2 months ago. Whatever.
Yeah, something
And
like
he said
that.
Strongbow used to give a lot of the new guys a hard time and purposely try to screw around with their career. Did you see that going on?
No, because I wasn't there. I mean, after the early 80s, I left.
Okay.
When Jay became more like an agent, so I really don't know. But Jay was a business guy. So, I mean, there's a lot of guys in the business that could come into business that shouldn't be in the business, as far as I was concerned, or guys like Strongbow.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so if Jay would he would look at you and go, "What the hell are you even doing here?"
Right.
He, you know.
What?
I mean, there's some guys now that I don't know why they're there.
Let me ask you this: with the passing of Bruno, how'd that affect you personally?
Oh, God, I was sad. I'm still sad. I mean, I still miss him. I scroll down my phone to call somebody. I'll see Bruno's name.
Wow.
I can still hear his voice. I mean, we were close for 50 years. And every time I talked to him over the last few years, it was always Bruno taking his wife Carol to the hospital because his wife had a lot of problems. And I just never thought I'd ever hear he died. It's Bruno.
Right.
But it was very. I got choked up. I could hardly talk.
So you didn't know he had medical issues? It was
Well, I knew some things were going, and he had some heart issues, and then I heard he was. And I tried to call him, no call. I talked to his kid Daryl, and Bruno's in the hospital, and hopefully he's going to recover, but he's having some trouble. So I knew something was not good, and then I heard, he didn't make it.
Yeah, that was a sad day.
And then talk about sadness. Then last week, one of his sons died.
Yes. I did
Yeah.
hear about
Danny.
that.
And poor Carol, I mean, she's got to be in the...
Do you keep in touch with
sad.
Carol? Check in on her?
Well, I used to when I call Bruno, but I don't call Carol.
Right. Right.
Let me ask you this: art imitating life. Was there any part of you, while you were in the WWE, that you were actually jealous of Bruno? Forget about the script, but and how much he was your mentor. Was there ever a point
Oh, jealous?
Did you ever get jealous of him?
Oh, God, no. He was my idol. I mean, I copied everything I could from him and stole some psychology from this guy and worked it into a Larry Zbyszko character to where when the new Bruno was the old era. When he was gone, basically early 80s, there was a new era taken off. But I kept enough of the secrets from the old timers to where all the new guys had to be some kind of weird gimmick, a character. Everybody was the this, the that, you know. But in terms of wrestling, it was even starting to go downhill in terms of belief. A different generation was coming. People were getting smarter. But with everything I've learned from Bruno and the old timers in the 80s, people still hated me. I could stand in the ring. And not do nothing, and people would chant, "Larry sucks."
Absolutely.
And I knew, so the bottom line, basically, no matter what they thought of wrestling, people believed Larry Zbyszko in real life was an a-hole.
Yep.
And that's how I got him.
And if I can tell the story, it is now the summer of 1980. I'm in junior high with my partner here. And after many, many months of begging for my own little black and white TV, I finally get one. And when my father gives it to me, he says the magic words, "I won't tell Mom you're watching Saturday Night Wrestling." Because it was on at midnight. And I wasn't supposed to be up that late. So here I am. I finally have my own TV. It's the summer. My grades were good enough. I win. And I start watching. And my timing is perfect because I always wanted to see wrestling on a regular basis. And now I can. And along comes this good guy. And he's a really good guy. Larry Zbyszko. And I like him. And I'm watching. And he's like, I can't get out of the shadow of Bruno unless he faces me. I'm respectfully asking for a match. And I'm saying to myself, he's a nice guy. Give him his match. Bruno will do it. Bruno's a good guy. And I'm 12 years old. I am eating this up. And Larry has the match with Bruno. And I'm sitting there. I'm torn because I like both of them. And Larry Zbyszko can't seem to outwit his mentor and goes crazy and slams him over the head with a chair. And I'm 12 years old and there's blood on my TV screen.
A lot of blood.
And there was no blood on TV back in those days. And I'm watching this guy bleed badly, and he's beating on him. I'm like, I hate you, Larry Zbyszko. So let me ask you, how did this come about, this story that was basically the landmark of a career, basically? How did this come about, your feud with your mentor, who in real life you loved? How does this come to you? Who approaches you?
It was kind of
this idea.
It was my idea.
It was his idea.
Wow.
Well, it was kind of
masochist.
Well,
Okay,
no, I'm truthful, but it was from all the stuff I've learned the previous years in the '70s from all the guys, the timers. And at that point, Bruno broke his neck a little earlier with Stan Hansen, and he retired. He said, "I can't take it anymore."
Okay.
He was doing the broadcasting with Vince, and in the meantime, I think Backlund was the champion. There's some Billy Graham. But the reality was, after Bruno, the audience wasn't ready for Bruno to leave yet. He was just so beloved. Yeah. And the business was not drawing. It was starting to go down and down because Bruno wasn't wrestling anymore.
Okay.
And Bob...
do you think Backlund was a poor draw in comparison?
Well, Bob just couldn't fill his shoes. You know, I mean, in those days... Bob, who was a good wrestler, great athlete, and he was in such great shape that he didn't really look that big. He was, like in such great physical condition, but he didn't look like a gorilla.
Okay.
So people were used to seeing Bruno versus Ivan Koloff or Professor Tanaka or Killer Kowalski. And now Bob Backlund's out there that looks like a high school kid at 220 pounds, and the people just didn't buy it. I mean, it just wasn't ready yet.
So 2 questions for you on Backlund. So we grew up, that was the era we really grew up, right?
Yep.
We grew up disliking Backlund, always looking for the heel to win. But as we've gotten older, we have this huge respect for Backlund.
True.
But I've heard you in the past on some other interviews saying that, 2 questions for you, that you felt that Bob almost bankrupted the WWE.
Is that
Why did if you felt that way, why did Senior feel like he had to keep the strap on Backlund?
Oh, well, I don't know, and I don't know about the bankruptcy thing. I know that the business was going down and down.
Fair.
And I also knew that the way the business was in those days, Vince McMahon Sr. and he had a couple partners, but they were also involved in other things. They financed boxers. They were at the horse track. I mean, they were promoters. But if their wrestling business went down, that hurt them. So they, would do whatever they could to make the most money they, could. And it was a time I saw business going down. I knew the people were ready to not accept the fact Bruno's done. Mm-hmm. And I was a kid who was known as Bruno's protege.
Right.
Even other promoters would say, hey, what's that kid's name, that Bruno's protege? Oh, that Larry, maybe we'll bring him in. So I said, I knew whoever could talk Bruno back into the ring for one more thing would become a big star. Plus all the publicity came out of New York in the magazines. So if I could get Bruno to do this, it would make my career.
Yep.
So here's the poor guy, broke his neck recently. Did I care? No!
Nice.
But I was taught not to care. I was taught to do what was good for business. And I realized, for me, good business, if I get back in the ring with Bruno or anybody, I would be the guy.
So you go to Bruno first.
So I took a long shot and went to Bruno because nothing's going to happen.
Did you go through the weeds on the side of the house?
No.
Low crawl.
This is a big favor. He might have to crawl up on this one. I don't know.
No, I just ran it past him. And,
Okay.
And he thought about it for a while.
Okay.
Because but then...
How long's a while? Were you
No, maybe
squirming for a week or two?
maybe like a month or so. And then
That's a long while.
And then finally he came up with a way to do it. I mean, it was my idea,
So he was
but
thinking about
Bruno
it.
was the one that...
Okay.
And along with that, it was the secret of programming.
Yeah.
The secret of programming is what sells out arenas every month. The secret of programming is kind of what's lost today.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank
boy,
you,
bingo.
Larry.
I mean, you
thank
got an awesome production, but the programming is weak.
Oh, yeah. Couldn't agree more.
So that was all set up, but Bruno and Vince McMahon Sr. had some things to work out before this would happen too, because Bruno wanted to make sure he got a
Did Junior
a
have
payday.
any clout at that time? Any?
I really don't think Vince Jr. I mean, he was quiet when we saw him because it was his dad's show.
Because on the surface, he's just the announcer to the viewing audience at that time.
And I really don't know how much Vince was involved with the business back then. He's probably, I had a meeting once with Vince and Vince Jr. and we were talking, but it was, Vince Sr.'s, show.
Okay.
And Vince was kind of quiet in those days, but he was, sucking everything in and learning the business, and you could see what he did.
What did you think of Vince as an announcer? I loved him.
He was great.
I thought
he was a
great.
one-man show.
He never gets talked about nowadays because it's almost so far in the rearview mirror with Vince.
And you know
McMahon,
what?
but he was
I got to
great.
say, Vince, I think he wanted to be a wrestler, but his dad didn't want him to be one.
Oh, really?
I think, if I remember right, because Vince was into working out.
Yeah, he was huge.
He was a good-sized guy, yeah.
Man. Oof.
And
Well, you know what? To tell the truth, he did become a wrestler, right? He became one of the biggest heels in history.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, later down the
Took
road,
care of that anyway.
the stuff Vince did was the best stuff
It
they
was-
had
oh my
going.
God, it was great.
He was the
Didn't
best guy they had.
Bischoff said if there was the one guy who could have had to turn the war, it would have been Mr.
Vince.
McMahon, the character.
Yeah.
All right, so I want to keep us on track.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Can I ask-
Bruno's making that decision, and
There you go.
Well, then he worked out a deal with Vince Sr. because it was so much. Because Bruno wanted so much percent
Okay.
of the house, and I had a meeting with them because I was saying to them, "Look, honestly, guys, I'm getting stabbed and shot at, and I'm drawing the money, and it's but Backlund's making more money
my
than
God.
I am."
Right.
So that didn't seem fair.
That's not fair at all.
And Vince Sr. was good about it. He said, well, we realize Backlund's not super hot right now, and we understand. And so we worked out a deal where I got a percent, which was close, but a little less than Bruno,
Right.
which was I was thrilled about, because in those days that was big money with that angle, led up to with, because we had like 3 matches at the Gardens and
Yes.
Spectrums and all over. Shea Stadium was kind of like the big blow off after a 6-month program, which in those days that was long.
Yeah. That was classic.
Plus they raised the prices, so we broke records and.
Well, after you created this immense heat, and we used to wonder about this even back then, How come you were never paired with the unholy trio, any one of the three, Blassie, Wizard, Albano? Why did that never happen for you? Is it because you were so good on the mic yourself you didn't need them? Or?
Well, you know what? Yeah, I don't think it was even thought about that much. But right after the Bruno feud, it was things kind of were changing, and I made the decision to go to a different territory because the other territory I got so much publicity from that stuff. I was, big news. If I would have stayed in the WWF in those days, I would have been losing it. So I tried to, it was a lot of political maneuvers to keep yourself on top in those days. But if you stayed in the territory too long, you get to be old news. So if you got really hot one place.
Well, the WWE or the WWF, they were face, the champions were always the face. So you were amazing heel. Your lifespan there can only last a certain lifespan.
Yeah, I mean, the heels...
Because the belt kept staying on Backlund.
Well, the heels don't have a long lifespan naturally because sooner or later, the good guy's got to beat them.
Yeah.
Or you don't have a hero.
Right.
Which is different from the NWA, right? Because the bad guys are one
Yeah, Ric Flair was
heels
the face, and he was always a bad guy.
So, real quick, we know you leave the
face of the company.
We know you leave the WWE. What was it like working for Vince Sr.? I know you really didn't work for Junior, but can you tell us maybe the difference between the two?
The thing, I because I was young at the time, I really didn't deal with Vince Sr. like a top guy would deal with him. Bruno was taking care of all that, and I was kind of caught in the middle of Bruno and Vince Sr.
So Bruno's almost like your negotiator.
Bruno was telling me what to do with some things, too, because I didn't know...
Sure.
Did Bruno ever call you on the phone or come to your house and complain about Senior, taking advantage of it?
No, we talk on the phone, and it was never a taking advantage of. It's the way the business was. Mm-hmm. If you didn't speak up for your money, you'd get what they give you. And if you spoke, but if you stood up for yourself, they may be pissed about it for a day or two, but they had more respect for you because they knew you were a sharp guy like they were. If you were stupid...
They took advantage of it.
Okay, go ahead. Here's your $40.
So speaking of that, we have a show on Sundays, the Evan Ginsberg Show, from 11 to 1 o'clock. He'll be on with a couple of guests tomorrow. He's a big proponent that Vince, at this point in his company, should be taking care of the older wrestlers and helping them out. Can you weigh in
now?
Now. So
medical pensions for guys who worked 30 years ago.
So my point, I guess my question to you
is,
be
anything like that
why didn't you guys try to unionize? And two, do you believe that you were taken care of well enough that was up to you to make sure that your retirement was
the business was an individual thing in the old day. I don't know if the company given a pension because no one ever paid into a pension.
Right.
Okay. So it's not like they had pension plans.
Do you think it's an individual business today?
Well, yeah, in a different way. In my days we had territories. So you can go to one territory and make as much as you could, and before they buried you, you went to a new one. Until you kept having a place to go to make money. Nowadays, to make big money and be a big star, it's really the WWE. So you have to be smart enough and good enough to get over with the crowd enough so the WWE wants to keep you. Some guys have been there a long time. Some guys, don't make it a long time. Some guys get hurt. Some guys shouldn't be there.
Right.
Yeah.
When you left Vince, you went on to the NWA. Was this culture shock for you? And also, you followed it up by going to the AWA. In a span of 6 years, you basically crossed over the big three. WWF, NWA, and AWA. What was the difference between the three promotions? And was it culture shock going from one to the other?
Well, it wasn't culture shock for me. It worked out. It was probably more culture shock for guys going up to the new WWF.
But aren't you?
Well, how about going into the NWA and you're no longer with Bruno?
Well, that was I was going to say.
That dynamic
you're not
is
under
no
that wing
there.
of protection.
Well, but here's the thing. Because I was with Bruno, and because I had such a publicity with the heat from the Bruno feud, when I went to territories, they were really nice to me. And I was smart enough to know how to work with them, and the AWA was a great territory in those days.
That feud with Bruno solidified everything.
Yeah.
And it did. It was great.
So, how do you feel about Ric Flair's comments when he said Bruno can only sell out the Garden and a little part of the Northeast, and he couldn't transition to any other territory? What are your feelings about that comment?
Oh, well, Bruno wasn't a big Flair fan. I mean, to Bruno, Flair was a routine guy. You've seen one match, you've seen them all.
What's your feeling on Flair?
Well, I mean, you got to give Flair credit.
Oh,
I mean,
Flair's
Flair's obviously one of the great ones. He got a career that spanned a long time. I'm amazed how long he went physically. I mean, even, I did broadcasting for 10 years. Rick was still wrestling.
Right.
But I think there was just some things, Flair might have said when Bruno hears it, then Bruno gets mad and says stuff back. Bruno didn't really care too much for Flair in terms of being all that great. He was a routine guy, colorful guy, could talk great, but you can't take nothing away from Rick either.
Did you feel Bruno got a little bitter towards the end because of the money these guys were making in the mid '80s?
The business changed so much.
The business changed after Hogan came to WWF.
Must have been a shock.
Well, it changed a lot. It's not that he got bitter. You know what it was with some of the old timers? It was almost kind of an humiliating embarrassment where they wanted to hide because they spent their whole lives to the point of not having friends, not talking to your wife. You never smarten your wife up. Mm-hmm. Their families. You never smarten your family. Nobody. Right. So they came from a totally different philosophy. Vern and Bruno and Crutch and all the old school guys. Mm-hmm. So when the business was changing, and it wasn't no one specifically that changed the business, humanity changed. Right. Humanity now, where 20 years ago you'd vote for the president or the vice president, but nowadays no one believes in politicians. They're all smart to all the...
I'm running. You didn't hear?
They're all smart to the corruption of the politicians and what really goes on in Washington. And I'm glad Trump's draining the swamp. But back then, so...
There's someone's going to be texting you now.
I'm with you. Everything's fine, but someone's...
Larry, I used to be a fan. No longer.
So it just got to a point where the fans humanity was changing, and the old-timers didn't want them to lose that belief because they knew if the fans believe this is real, we'll make more money and it'll be better. Right. But it was going the other way out of a natural progression of humanity.
How did you feel when kayfabe, How did that make you feel?
I was in the generation that kind of I was one of the last of the old school mentality guys, but I was going through an era where it was changing. And the one thing I noticed, because I'd be listening to matches before my match, like in the AWA and NWA, people would start once in a while, oh, boring, because now they're starting to get smart. But I could go out there, and they would chant, Larry sucked, and I knew how to work them to it. They were booing it, and there'd be riots. Yeah.
The 16-minute stall.
I'd come in after a match, the Road Warriors would say, oh, my God. Oh, what an easy crowd this is, because it was,
Right.
And then they go out, their match was dead quiet. Yeah. And then they come back, and the Hawk would be bitching.
Right.
Well, what? You said it was an easy house out there. I said, yeah, if you know how to work.
For me, yeah.
Don't say that to me, Larry.
Yeah.
You
finally get a hold of AWA. You finally get a heavyweight world title. I don't know what took so long. I was talking to you in the back. I couldn't stand the fact that Backlund, you should have taken the belt from Backlund. I don't give a damn. I can't stand it.
Stop it.
The man's got a point.
Especially after the San Martino thing. It was right for the picking. Anyway.
He's on a roll.
You finally get the AWA World Heavyweight title. You do a program with the late, great Mr. Saito, where you guys exchanged the belt a couple of times. Good. I wanted to ask you, did you want this title? Was this something that did you always want to be the world heavyweight champion? Was it that important to you when you finally got it? Because I remember we read it in the mags. We were like, about damn time.
Yeah, that's true.
Did you feel like you really with such marks? He's laughing his ass off, but it's true.
I know you guys are great.
Belt on him.
Hey, Larry! To be honest, were you helping out your father-in-law Vern, who was having trouble with the territory?
Oh shit! I didn't even.
Well, I was there once before, and once when Vern should have shut down.
Right.
Really?
But,
okay.
Well, wait. What would?
Were you really like? Did you always want to win a world heavyweight title?
Did you really want the AWA title? Or are you like?
I want the WWF.
Let me help.
Here's the deal.
Okay.
Of a professional wrestler in psychology, I didn't care about a belt one way or another. It was a pain in the ass to drag around all through the airports.
Yeah, but didn't you get the most money when you had the title?
What you wanted to do was make the most money you could. And sometimes I would make more money being the heel going after the champion than if I had the belt. But then there was times when it was right for me to have the belt, and then they could bring in baby faces that were already known.
Well, you guaranteed yourself a main event if you had the belt,
Yeah.
and they keep bringing these guys in.
But I was a main event anyway,
Right.
kind of. So to me, it wasn't so much the belt, it was to make the most money you can. And at one time, especially at the end there, for me to have the belt, it worked out good because we brought like Slaughter in, who was a well-known good guy to have a match with, and Harley Race and Nikita Koloff.
But when you
But we were trying to tell Vern in the late 80s, would you please shut down?
Well, let me ask you, towards the end, did he ever, because he's known for, he stiffed a lot of people in the end, right? Did he ever stiff you?
Oh, no. Well, he's my father-in-law at the end.
So, but he did stiff people, right?
Well, you know what? I never heard that about Vern.
Really?
The AWA was a hard territory to get into because it was a great place to work. And here's one of the main reasons. One, you made good money there. But because the weather was so horrible in the winter times, you made a lot of money because people would go inside to watch something. You couldn't go outside.
Yeah.
But in the summertime, between getting out of the house, cabin fever, and all the farming, Vern really didn't run shows a lot in the summer, just some TVs. So in the summertime, you really had a nice kind of 3-month semi-vacation where you still made money, but then in the winter, it was a gold mine. So it was a great territory, to be in and not easy to get in.
But did it make sense to you what Vern was trying to do, trying to battle back against,
No, he wasn't doing it right.
Did you try to talk to him and say,
did
you're
you ever
doing the
try to-
wrong thing here,
You
you're
should do
making a
this, and
mistake?
you should do that.
Yeah,
Was it
some guys tried.
How about
Okay.
you? Did you try?
Well, yeah,
I mean, you're in the
tried.
household that breaking bread
Yeah,
Thanksgiving,
no, I
right?
tried. I mean, but he just had, and talent-wise, they had the new era going with the Macho and the Hulk and the Hot Rod and the Superfly and everybody else. And Vern, after 25
And
years,
Salvatore
still has...
Palomo, don't forget
Don't
him.
forget Salvatore.
Yeah,
Palomo.
still have
forgot
Nick
about
Bockwinkel and Greg Gagne. So
Wow, yeah.
he needed some new stuff, and
Yeah.
it just wasn't...
Yeah.
And old school promoters like Vern and the Crockett's, they were happy with what they had. They made a mint with their territories.
Yeah.
But Vince, he was the young guy of the crew, and he saw the new era coming. He saw the nationwide. And they didn't want to change, but it was now a new era, and Vince saw it, and it was his turn. He was the new promoter.
Yep.
And the other guys were, they lived their life.
He had the balls to do it.
But he saw it coming, and he did. Let me tell you, there should be a statue of Vince with Bruno and Andre.
Absolutely.
I agree with that.
I mean,
Okay.
if people knew some of the risks he
Yeah.
took to
Oh my
make
God.
the
I
company
can
big.
imagine.
I mean, how many times he put his house.
Risked everything.
I mean,
Yep.
Vince is one of the greatest promoters that will ever
And I
live.
actually think it was very
It was ballsy.
potentially dangerous what he was trying to do. Like, getting. I bet you he got his share of death threats, trying to, branch the product out across the country and then the world.
Well, I don't think about that because the promoters didn't know, but just the chances he took with getting Mania off the ground
Sure.
by
sure.
putting up his house for
Well, so
collateral.
at
If
that
Mania
point,
didn't draw, he would have lost everything.
When Mania was coming out, at that point, are you thinking, man, I got to get back there, or?
Well, I wasn't really. I was kind of happy where I was all the time. 'Cause I was making money, having a good time, and the WWE had all their characters, so they were kind of full. And if I went in there, I could see them not really using me as a top guy because they had at that time their top guys. So it was better for me to
Just protect yourself.
go back and forth between AWA and the NWA.
Here's a weird one for you. I wanted to ask you what your favorite match in the AWA was, but that's not the weird part. I wanted to ask you about boxing Scott Ledoux.
Oh, that was a classic.
That was a classic.
I mean, Scott was
how did that happen? Why
Yeah,
Scott Ledoux?
I
Why
don't
not?
know, but they've had a couple over time, with Ali versus Inoki, and
You have to train a little bit for that one. Or?
yeah, I took him in the ring a little bit. Yeah, but Scott did a hell of a job, I thought. I mean, I watched
he
it
did.
one time, and when you look at it, you'll swear to God that was real.
It's a little better than Piper and.
I don't. That's a great fight.
But I thought,
I love
I
it.
thing
Shut
with
up.
Ledoux came off really good in the ring. Scott did
Yeah, I
a
thought he
good
did.
I
job.
thought you both came off good in that
Yeah.
match.
But I was so good I could work with a broom.
Wow.
It's like AJ Styles. AJ Styles could wrestle a broom. He could. He could. What was your favorite AWA match, if I can ask? How about the program with Slaughter, perhaps? Or maybe when...
Oh, God.
Didn't you retire Bachwinkle as well as Bruno? We know about
Oh,
you.
yeah, of course I did.
Yeah, there you go. You have a favorite one from that promotion?
You know what? I mean, there was a bunch of classic favorite ones, but I got a few big compliments over the careers from one from Luthez one time and one from Bachwinkle. I remember me and Sergeant Slaughter had a match in Chicago. And I'm trying to think what the exact comment was. But we came back, and Nick Bachwinkle came up to me, and he says, Larry, that was the greatest match I've ever seen. I mean,
Nice.
and I had a match with one guy, Scott Casey, a cowboy, one time in Texas some years ago, and Luke Thez was the special referee. And after the match, Luke Thez came up to me and said, Larry, and I didn't know the guy. He said, you're the greatest wrestling heel I've ever seen.
Crap.
And that was like one of the biggest compliments. Harley Race
Oh, my God.
told me one time it was the best hour of Broadway he ever saw, me and Tommy Rich.
These are big names.
Larry,
dropping
So
these
I
compliments,
felt
man.
really
Oh,
good
my
about
God.
it.
Was there one guy that you just couldn't work with? It was just as great as you are that you weren't able to make it work?
Not that I really worked with. I mean, if they were that horrible, I'd work around them.
Okay.
You know, I mean.
Anyone you dreaded, like, finding out you were facing? I know, it's hard to throw people
Not
into
to be
it.
honest with you, there wasn't, because I was so good at,
There you go.
if they were an
better.
a-hole, I already worked them, that they think I liked them, but in the ring I could do things, and I could really wrestle too, so I could do some things. And
Absolutely.
All right, Larry, I'm going to ask you this question because this is my favorite question.
Uh-oh.
What is your biggest payday?
Oh, that is
And
his favorite
I
question.
do. Look, you don't have to
You
give me
got
an exact
Valentine to
number,
answer,
but
you-
maybe it could give me. But everybody's
Well, you
answered
could,
with some form or
In
another.
some form or another.
And what event was it?
I'm trying to think. I mean, for the day,
Was it Jay?
because with the biggest money, I mean, the WCW contract.
Yeah, it's big
okay,
money. Yeah,
there
sure.
we go.
But
Okay.
that was for the year though, you get a contract for a year, $350, $400,000 for working a day a week and all
Nice.
the benefits.
Ooh-wee. Sign me up.
Pension.
Yeah, no kidding. And I was insulted at first.
What? You want me to what?
Work one day? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I do Nitro, and then I
This
do
is
another day.
ridiculous.
A day and a half a week. What the hell is
How
this?
dare you?
How dare you?
Who I am?
From all of you, Mr. Turner.
And I want a pension on top of that.
Yeah, where's my
And
pension?
medical.
Yeah, meanwhile, Bruno, take the job, Larry.
Yeah.
That's great.
Oh, what are we talking about?
Biggest payday for an event that you.
Oh, I mean, for a one-night deal. I mean,
Yeah.
Shea Stadium was big for its day.
Okay.
But I think the biggest one I made was $30,000 for the one shot.
Nice.
That was the Japan thing with me and Saeed.
Really?
I think
Wow.
if I remember right,
Japan.
that was
match.
$30,000 cash, and you'd come back to
Sweet.
the country with $30,000 stuck in a money belt.
That's pretty
Telling
funny.
customs, do you have 5,000 on you? Certainly not.
No, I know.
Oh
It's
my
like,
I have
God, that's
1,200
funny.
in T-shirts, sir.
Yeah.
that
Thank
is
you.
great. Great.
And back then, the guys, you could get, a Rolex that would be $5,000 here would be $300 in Japan, because in those days the yen was so different.
Sure.
So you'd have guys coming back with 10 Rolexes they spent $1,000 on, selling them for $30,000 to people.
Can you tell us a little bit about maybe some experience with Andre the Giant that you might have had?
Oh God, Andre, yeah, a good friend of mine. We traveled a bunch, especially in Japan. But it was a classic with Andre. Nice guy. We played cribbage a lot. We played cards. But it was always an interesting story. Andre would get off the plane and walk down the hall. I would always walk behind him a little bit because I like to watch the show. And as Andre was walking, from the gate, there'd be hundreds of people coming his way. And they'd all walk by him, but not look at him like he wasn't even there. Even though,
Dude, he's there.
But as soon as he took 2 or 3 steps past him, everybody stopped and turned around. So as Andre's walking down, people are coming like nothing's happening. As soon as he leaves, now you got 100 people all turning around, looking at him from the back going, oh my God. And stuff like that. One time, me and Gurria were following a little guy named Freddie. Freddie in Boston was a referee, a little skinny guy. But he had a big beat-up car with a broken seat that Andre could fit in. So we put Andre in Freddie's car. Freddie was driving, and me and Gurria were following him to the building. And Freddie pulls up to the stop sign, kind of a rainy, drizzly day. And for some reason, Freddie pulls out of the stop sign, makes a turn. Someone comes along and hits Freddie in the bumper. Boom, they have like a little bumper bender in the road.
Okay.
So the one car skids and stops. Me and Tony are sitting in the car looking at this, and little skinny Freddie gets out of the car, and the guy sees Freddie gets out of his car and starts walking over to little Freddie, rolling up his sleeves.
Oh boy!
You stupid son of a bitchin' kid!
God.
As he's saying this, the door opens, and all of a sudden, there's a gigantic afro.
Yeah,
that exploded bigger than the door of
the
the
afro's
car.
bigger than the average sized person.
Yeah.
Alone. Go on.
We popped up. Andre started getting up. By the time the guy got to the back of the car, Andre stands up, and the guy looks up and he starts rolling his sleeves down, going, "You've got to be kidding me!" Oh, and he runs back to his car and shuts it and sits there. Because they're waiting for the cops, because there was no cell phones or nothing back
You want a
then.
peanut?
Oh my!
But it was always something like that with Andre.
I love it, man. Oh my God.
How about your opinion on Hulk Hogan while we're on it?
The Hulk?
Yeah.
Hey, you can't take anybody that managed to become a big star in this business. You can't take anything away
You
from
think he
him.
should be forgiven already? Enough is enough, or
Well, I really don't know what the story was.
right?
But it has something to do with a racial crack or something.
Somebody taped him a bunch of years back, and then they tried to make money off it, and then they got their asses sued, and then they lost, and now Hogan is basically dealing with the damaged leftover residue of the whole incident. And
Yeah, I mean,
how
to
was
know.
that? Did I describe it?
I mean, to be honest with you, you can't take nothing away from the Hulk because he had an era. You know,
Right.
I mean, him and some other guys. I mean, you can take what he says with a grain of salt because, you know, it took Hulk and Macho and Piper and Snuka and Andre to sell out what one Bruno would if they sold out. You know, so. But I think at the end of his career, Hulk was getting maybe, I don't know, too grand. He was doing some things that were so silly. Like, didn't he do some, like, it was a thing where, like, who's that chick with the big giant ass? Kardashian?
Yeah.
It was in this thing. What's horrible? I don't even know what the big deal is. Anyway.
I'm kind of with him on this.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, it's
I don't know, she's-
overrated. I'll tell you
she's
that.
got a nice ass.
Oh, it's so overrated.
Nice.
Go
Like,
on.
you need to-
To make her a billionaire, she's overrated.
It's huge. Anyway. And that's just a turn off to me. I can't help
I hear
it.
you.
They must really smell. So,
That's awesome.
but
You were saying?
I forget now.
I totally forgot.
He's doing something with Kardashian.
Hogan was doing something with Kardashian.
Oh, no, well, no.
$2,000 at Kardashian's.
No, but back then everybody was releasing some stupid sex tape,
Right.
like
Right.
someone had sex and it was snuck out, and I think that was done on purpose with some of these showbiz people to
Yeah.
get publicity.
Yeah.
And it looks to me like Hogan tried to do that same.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of
celebrity
people want to
route.
see Hulk Hogan having sex, man.
But then it's just the love spot. I think that was a total, and I think there was stuff he didn't need to do.
Right.
He
Larry-
really kind of hurt himself, is what he did.
You know, in the 70s, I don't know how prevalent drugs were, but obviously in the 80s, that's when wrestling and drugs and human growth hormone, steroids, and everything else. You were in those locker rooms. Did you ever try to give these kids some advice, or are you just just took care of yourself type of deal?
Well, you know what? Like in the 70s when I started, there was no drugs.
Right.
Not even pot. And the guys I hung out with, Bruno, Dominic, I mean, there was no drugs.
In your circle.
I saw a little bit of pot in college,
Right.
yeah, but I never got into the drug thing. I wanted to be a wrestler, and there was never any drugs around in the 70s. But then when I went down, but then the pot started coming around, and people would smoke pot. But then I would see people that smoked pot were better to hang out with than the drunks, because the drunks were always getting in fights and being nasty, and
Imagine that.
it was stupid, you know, and
Right.
all that.
Bret Hart said that.
But then it wasn't, again, it's not so much the wrestling, it's wrestling makes the most money it can when it follows what goes on with the human race and where humanity is.
Bingo.
You know, Bruno was the American dream story of the immigrant starving that made a success in America, good guy. And then there was an era of starting with like the Terminator and Dave Draper and Arnold Schwarzenegger that had such an awesome look. You know, because the guys before them, Charles Atlas was 210 pounds. He looked like a starving geek next to Arnold or Dave Draper or some other guys they had. And people were, oh my God. So wrestling followed that. And the guys that started winding up being stars were the guys with the surrealistic looks. And people bought it for a little bit because no one knew about steroids. You know, and then when they found out, it was like, and that was one of Bruno's things was, a lot of legitimate athletes that are tough guys weren't getting the good push because the guy who didn't know a squat and wasn't even a good athlete, some of them, looked amazing because they were gassed to the gills.
Right.
Well, you are a big guy and were a really big guy when you were wrestling.
I was
you never
thick.
hit the
You were
gas.
thick. Yeah, he was natural.
No, I never used the gas. I mean, I was like 5'11" 3/4, never hit 6 foot. And the most I ever weighed was like 248 pounds, almost hit 250. Like Bruno was about a little shorter than me, but his bones were so big.
Right.
But I worked out with him, and when I was 21 at 240 pounds, I benched 465.5 pounds with the 1 second pause.
Wow.
Which
Nice.
for a guy who weighed 240,
It's great.
was a lot. But until I think Billy Graham might have been like the first guy that came in from the West Coast that had that ridiculous look. And then everybody started, Hulk and, half the guys that are dying now. Or
What did Bruno think of Superstar Graham?
That's a great question. That is
because this to me is he's the
that's
the
the
total
spark.
poster of the complete opposite of a Bruno.
Superstar.
This
Superstar
guy's
Graham's
not
the spark.
the natural built wrestler. He's got that totally flamboyant over the top thing going on.
yeah, I really don't know, to be honest with you.
Really?
What did
I
you
mean,
think of Superstar?
I don't remember anything negative that Bruno would say about
just curious,
Billy or anything.
What did you think about Billy when he came?
Well,
on the scene?
when he first came around, I mean, he was a top heel, and I was working with him at the clubs, and he was a night off because his matches were real short. But I never had any trouble with Billy. In fact, but when he first came around with that look, I didn't think steroids either.
Right.
You know.
Right.
But then,
What
but then,
you're thinking? Wow, this guy's really naturally
Wow,
big.
he's huge.
Yeah, geez, look at him.
Look at this guy.
I remember one time he was out in the ring in the garden, and me and Vince Sr. are standing there looking at him, and we look at each other, and we go, "My God!"
Yeah.
Yeah. But then it started happening with everybody, and then even the guys that were there. I know Dino Bravo was a good-looking guy with a good body.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, 6-8 months later, I see him. He's over 300 pounds. He's
Right.
swelled up to the gills. He looked better at 260.
Right.
But the guys were doing it. They didn't even need to do it. They just thought they should.
Well, they had
do it.
to, right? They were afraid that they'd lose their spot, right?
Yeah, I don't think they would have, but they were afraid they would have.
So now, as you're progressing, you're in WCW. Again, I'm only assuming you're in these locker rooms. You're announcing, you're wrestling, whatever. These guys are popping pills. They're snorting coke, doing whatever else. I mean, what are you thinking?
Well, guys kayfabe stuff. It wasn't like, you go in the dressing room and the guys would never really get screwed up until after the matches. Then they go to a bar and drink.
It was
And then in the 80s, there was cocaine around just about everywhere. But it wasn't a weird thing. It was social.
Right.
I mean, you'd walk in somewhere, there'd be a movie director, a
was
lawyer, a judge, other
Sure.
people that would have a little
Shocking.
bottle and, hey, how you doing? You want a bump?
Yeah.
It was like
A bump.
the
There you
social
go.
thing. Can I buy you a beer? Hey, have a bump.
Everybody's looking at the floor afterwards for the leftovers. Yeah.
Yeah, but it wasn't a
Grinding your
thing. And
gums.
I tried it a little bit sometimes because everybody had it, but I didn't like the feeling of being wired.
Yeah.
Because if you did one little bump, you could wake up a little bit.
to a
and-
nervous wreck, though.
But if you did 2 or 3, so it didn't. I was lucky, and I was very lucky. I never drank. I tried it. I puked.
Okay.
So
There you go.
I never had any fun. I never
Yeah,
drank.
that's not fun. Why would you go back and do it again?
I mean, the coke.
That was
I
great.
did a little bit of coke here and there, but I couldn't do it a lot. I just
How
couldn't.
about the ring rats? Did you enjoy the ring rats?
No, I was.
You better have.
I wasn't big. I wasn't one of the guys that messed around with a lot of rats.
Oh, okay.
That's another story, just to how I am, because
That's fair.
I couldn't touch nothing unless it was a 10.
Oh, okay. There you
So
go.
speaking
As
of
opposed to Monty, who goes for 5'2".
Yeah, most
listen,
of the
I'm like 2 to 3s work for me, man.
Yeah.
5'2s are as good as a
Oh
10,
my
right,
God!
Monty?
Holy F on the report
That's
card.
right. If you do the math, why not?
Why not?
That is brutal.
Speaking of 10s, I don't know. Are you watching the product currently at all?
Oh, yeah. Well, me and my buddy Terry, we watch it every week.
Oh, there you go. Cool.
Every
how do
Monday
you-
I go to his house, and his boys
That's
love
cool.
me.
How do you like the women?
And we watch it, so I know what's going on with their main
I knew you'd get to the
flow, so.
women. How do you
How
find
do you
the,
like the
women
women?
today?
Hey, well, I keep calling them divas, but I guess they're not divas anymore.
No
right?
longer.
Okay, I like the diva thing. Hey, some of them women, are ridiculously athletic.
Yeah.
I mean, some of them are very impressive. I mean,
Sure.
A long way from Fabulous Moolah. Right?
Oh yeah. No, I mean,
Fabulous Moolah.
there's a few of them. I mean, Charlotte Flair
She's amazing.
is
Yes.
great. There's a chick, Alicia Fox, super
He's not saying
athletic
the
in
name.
the
What
in
about
the ring.
Alexa Bliss,
Alexa
Larry?
Bliss.
Well, Alexa Bliss just kind of started. She's been
She's amazing, isn't she?
well.
I'm trying.
I like Amanda. I mean, she's doing a good job.
Alexa.
Alexa,
Amanda.
whatever. But I've
That's
seen
an
some. I've seen some chicks that are really,
Yeah.
really impressed me in terms of how athletic they are.
Do you think Sasha Banks's ass?
Oh
is
my
a
God.
10?
What?
He
Sasha
probably
Banks'
doesn't even
ass.
know what the hell you're talking about.
I know
We were,
Sasha.
They
we were
have an
talking
ass
about
fan club for
Kim
Sasha. I'm
Kardashian,
sorry,
Kim
Mr.
Kardashian's ass being a
They've
mess.
determined that it's the greatest ass ever made.
Ever
so
made.
basically, they want to
Oh,
Hall of
no,
Fame
to
for
be
asses. Did I get that in?
Sasha Banks' ass should be the number one bust in the ass Hall of Fame. That's what I said.
I'm
Glad
sorry,
you agree
Mr.
on this.
It's a publicly traded company. I don't think you're allowed to.
Oh, now he's
You
helping.
cannot
Oh,
think
yeah,
of someone's ass. I'll tell you a funny story. One time,
Here we go.
this was in WCW in the last days of WCW.
last days,
yeah,
okay.
when they were already
Everyone's running
ruined.
out the back door with their bounce
The
checks.
final
Go on.
days.
And they had a
Bischoff is screaming, "Come back!"
they had a
Go on.
censor there, and now they started with, for some reason, doing these stupid skits.
Oh God.
I hate skits.
Oh God. But
Everybody does.
Yeah.
But they start doing the skits. So now you have a guy and you have a chick doing a skit with some guy and a camera guy, and he's zooming into like a shot of her butt, and all of a sudden then they had to stop, so the TBS, a guy who kept it clean or whatever the rules,
Standards and
yeah,
practices,
standards,
yeah.
would look at it, and he made this comment that I wet my pants. It was getting so stupid. He'd say, "Well, okay, you can shoot the ass, but you can't touch the ass."
That's great.
I said, "You got to be kidding! This business is going."
My God.
All right, so we got to wrap it up. I will say though, if Sasha's ass ever gets into the WWE Hall of Fame, Larry, you will induct her.
Induct his ass.
I'm sorry, I'm already taken by that.
No, please.
Anyway,
leave him out of this.
we want to thank you, sir, for gracing us with your presence, and
Well, that was fun. It went quick too.
There you go.
Yeah, well, you are fantastic, and you certainly are a legend and one of the greatest wrestlers of all time.
Absolutely.
And in everybody's book. So again, we want to thank you for joining Village Connection.
Well, thank you for letting me be here. Love you all.
All right, so this has been Monty and the Pharaoh. Catch us Thursday from 8:05 to 9 p.m. We're back tomorrow with Abdullah the Butcher at 1 to 2, and he'll be live in studio. And don't forget the Evan Ginsberg Show. He has Hollywood on from the gorgeous ladies of wrestling. All right, anyway, I'm Mike Monty.
This is the Pharaoh.
We'll see you later.
That wasn't bad, was it?